Like, I need everyone to read this book and scream about it with me because it is that good, and I feel like it's very popular, but like none of my friends have read it, so like please get on it. Then the next book that I want to talk about is another one that left me completely emotionally destroyed. This book was absolutely insane. I cannot wait for the next one. Hello everybody, it's Sara. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you all about my favorite books that I've read so far this year. Since we are approaching the end of June, we are slowly getting towards the middle of the year, so a lot of people will start to upload their mid-year book freakout tag, which is definitely the next video that you're also going to get from me. But I wanted to talk about my favorite books in a different video because I realized when I look at the questions for the book tag that I did not know how in the heck I was supposed to choose only one book to talk about, because out of the like 40-ish books that I've read so far this year, so far I only gave 5 stars to 5 books, but I wasn't actually like completely sure which one of these was my top favorite, so I decided to just do a video to talk about all of them because why not? So instead of talking about them in the mid-year book freakout tag video and make that video like 10,000 years long, we're just going to scream about these books together today. So because I can't quite choose yet which one is my actual favorite, we're just going to go into the order that I read them. And the first one that I want to talk about is Iron Widow by Jiran J. Zhao. This is one of those that I read and I literally had to take like 2 business days to recover from it because I spent the last 100 pages of this book screaming. Actually, I think I screamed from like beginning to end. And I know that I say that very often when it comes to book, but this one, like, I was actually yelling. I remember I was reading this book and sending messages to Cal from Retrieving Books, all in caps, just yelling because I just could not handle myself. But in case you don't know about this one, which would really surprise me because this book is like very popular. This is a YA fantasy book that mainly focuses on our main character Zitian, and she is basically a girl born in this world in which there are these giant metal like conceptions that people ride into war. Only men are allowed to pilot these things, and in order to do so they basically use the mind and the energy of female concubine. And when Zitian is basically sent away by her family to become one of these concubines, she just refuses to be drained of all of her energy and to die, and so she basically takes over the ship and she becomes the pilot and then just becomes completely unhinged. And it is frankly one of the most cathartic book I've ever read because the anger that our main character has is just so relatable, and the fact that she just decides that god dang it, she is tired of being treated like crap and just goes completely feral was honestly one of the most satisfying things I've read in a while. And it was such a wild book. There are so many twists and turns into this narrative. There is so much violence as well, so definitely be aware of that before you get into this. I would definitely check out the trigger warnings. I will leave them in the description box if you want to check them out. But yeah, this book was crazy. It was honestly such a whirlwind of emotions. I did not know where it was going to go at all. It left me shook to my core. There's also like a beautiful polyamorous like love triangle type of situation into this book, which was absolutely amazing, and it's such great representation. So yeah, I would definitely just check this out if you loved unhinged female characters, and I know that they're like all the rage right now. If you love that, you need to read this book. Also, if you love like soft boys characters, because the other like 2 main characters are just absolutely amazing and I love them. Like, I love the 3 main characters so much, and yeah, this book was absolutely insane. I cannot wait for the next one. Then the next book that I want to talk about is another one that left me completely emotionally destroyed, and that book is Flamefall by Rosaria Munda. This is the sequel to Fireborn by the same author, which is the first book into a YA fantasy trilogy about dragons. I've talked about it so much on my channel. I feel like if you've been following me here for a while, you probably know what this is about by now. But basically in the first book we follow these 2 main characters who are competing to be the leaders of their dragon riders fleet, and they live into this world in which there was a revolution a couple of years ago, and so the regime is still kind of like messy and just shaky on the edges, and basically they're trying to survive into this world, and they're stuck between their beliefs in democracy and also the past, and it's just really amazing. I love all of the characters into this series, and this second book really destroyed me. I literally finished this one and I had to stare into the void for like a good 10 minutes because I could not believe what was happening. It was too much, and I'm so scared of reading the third book, the third and final book, because I know that it will destroy me so thoroughly. I will not be able to recover because I love these characters so much and they went through it into this one. So yeah, I'm really scared for the last one, but I also know it's going to be like amazing. It's that kind of book series where you read the books and you're like suffering the entire way through, but also it's so good. And the characters are all like very messy and very flawed, and you get like so frustrated with them, but you also love them. It's like a lot of confusing feelings. But yeah, overall this is filled with adventure. It has romance, it has a found family trope, and I am so excited / terrified for the third book. Then the next book that I want to talk about is once again another one that I've talked about so much this year. Ever since I read it, I just keep on recommending it to everybody because I need everyone to read this book and scream about it with me because it is that good, and I feel like it's very popular, but like none of my friends have read it, so like please get on it. Hi, I'm an idiot. Actually, Hilary from Melted Books has read this book, and Hilary, we need to scream about it more, honestly. Like, we absolutely need to. Also, this one piece of hair that is stuck to my neck is really driving me crazy. So if it also has been driving you crazy while watching this video, I relate, I understand. I apologize on behalf of that one piece of hair. Anyway. Moving on. And that book is none other than The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. Truly one of the most amazing books I have read in a while. I feel like maybe the reason why I'm a little bit into a reading slump right now is because this book was like so good. And this, in case you don't know, is basically a collection of essays that John Green wrote, and in each essay he talks about one aspect of the human experience or one thing that humans invented, and at the end of those very short essays he gives that subject matter a rating out of 5 stars. And the reason why I love this so much is basically because, first of all, it really surprised me because I was expecting to love this, but I was not expecting to completely fall in love with it and sob while listening to the audiobook, so that was a great surprise. But also, I love all of the insight that John Green has and the way that he can take these like very mundane things and turn them into such meaningful and beautiful things that we created or that we appreciate as humans. And he talks about the human experience in just such a raw and deep and beautiful way, and I was just completely blown away. Like, I cried multiple times while listening to the audiobook. I also laughed so hard because some of these are like honestly quite silly, but then he also has this like great ability that I just love when authors can do that, where he makes me laugh and then like the next page I'm just sobbing, which I absolutely adore. And yeah, this book definitely delivered like on all fronts for me. Honestly, like I couldn't deal with this book. And that's also one of the few books this year that I've read that like I just couldn't put down. Literally every single time I had like 2 minutes, I would just put on the audiobook and just listen to it. I really wanted to just keep on listening to this book until like the end of time. I didn't want it to end. I just wanted to be constantly listening to John Green telling me about all of these random facts that he gathered. And if you want to have a good cry and also restore your faith in humanity, like, you need to read this book. It's absolutely incredible. Then the next book that I read this year and absolutely adored is Still Life by Sarah Winman. This is a historical fiction book that takes place during the Second World War, and we follow our main character Ulysses, who is a young soldier, and he is stationed in Italy when he meets Evelyn, who is a middle-aged woman who is basically in Italy because she wants to protect the art from the Nazis. So they have this very like peculiar meeting, and then we see how this very short encounter will then have a domino effect during the rest of their lives. And I don't want to say like more than that because I feel like that's all you need to know before going into this book, but it is just so absolutely incredible. The writing in this is insane. There were so many sentences that I just really wanted to like underline and mark down because they were just so beautiful. The characters are so great. I loved all of them. They're all meaningful in their own special way, and they have this like found family thing going on that I just absolutely adored. I have to say that the plot is very slow. It's very kind of like a slice of life book rather than a plot heavy or like a fast-paced book. So if you don't like that, maybe this wouldn't be for you. It's very like contemplative and just, you know, going through life and going through all of these different, you know, small events that at the end really equate to something. And it talks about art and about humanity, and it's just absolutely wonderful. This one really, once again, really surprised me, because when I started it, it was like very slow and I wasn't too sure that I was getting into it. But then the more that I got invested into the characters and their lives, I just could not stop reading, and I needed to know what was going to happen, and it broke my heart. But honestly, it was all worth it. It was just so beautiful. And if you love those kinds of like literary novels that really take you through like a character's life through the decades, then you would definitely love this. It was just so good, and I'm so happy that we read it with the Tea Leaves Book Club, because otherwise I would have never read it, and I need to get myself a copy. And then finally, the fifth and final book that I want to talk about in today's video is a book that maybe you have seen me like scream about on other social medias, and that book is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I recently did a romance reading vlog in which I read like 5 romance books to see if they were actually worth the hype in my opinion, and I decided at the end of that experiment to just like throw my TBR to the wind and read this one instead of the books that I had planned to read, and it was honestly the greatest decision I've made this year, I think. Not only like reading wise, but honestly just life wise. It was such a good decision, because this book blew my mind. It is, if not my favorite, like definitely one of my favorite romance books that I've ever read. It was just so incredible. And this is basically about Nora, who is a literary agent, and Charlie, who is an editor, and they had this like one meeting years ago, and they did not really have like a great first impression of each other, so they don't really like talk anymore. And at the beginning of the book, Nora has just been through a breakup, and she is starting to see this pattern into all of her exes, in the sense that they always dump her for like the small town girl. She is the one that is left behind in the city, while all of her exes go on and have these like very sweet, cute lives with all of these small town ladies. And so Nora is kind of like fed up with that. And so at the beginning of the novel, Libby, her little sister, actually asks her to come with her to like this retreat that she wants to have into a very small town in North Carolina. And so Nora agrees to go with Libby because she feels like there is something going on that her sister is not talking to her about. But then over there, Nora actually stumbles into Charlie, of course. And so they start to get to know each other more, and they start to see that the other person is not who they thought they were, and a romance soon blooms. I went into this book knowing that I had loved all of the other Emily Henry books that I had read before, but this one is officially my favorite. During the last 30 minutes of the audiobook, I alternated between sobbing my eyes out, cackling out loud, and like staring wistfully into the distance and smiling. It was just such a wide range of emotion that this book put me through, and I am honestly so grateful, because I really needed that. I really deeply related to Nora, the main character, in almost like a creepy way, in the sense that it felt like Emily Henry had opened up my brain and like took out thoughts from there and just put them in her books. Like, it was that kind of like, this is hitting too close to home feeling. But I also really love the main love interest, Charlie. He was just so incredible. Like, I fell for him immediately. I love him so much. He is so great. And yeah, I just loved how this book talked about romance, but also family, and also books, obviously because of the title, and the two characters like really love books and they bond over that, and it was just so good and so sweet, and it made me cry. And yeah, it was overall just like so great. And if you still haven't read any of Emily Henry's books, then you definitely need to change that, because I think she is honestly like one of my favorite romance writers, and more people need to feel this amount of emotions in their lives. It's just so great. Alright, so here we are. This is a very short but also very important list of my favorite books of the year so far. Please let me know in the comments down below which is your favorite book that you've read this year so far, because I need great books recommendations. I'm kind of like in a reading slump right now, and I just need the next big thing that will really kick me into a full-on reading mood. So definitely let me know which books you think that I should read before this year is over, which books you think would become maybe one of my new favorites. And yeah, I hope that you really enjoyed this video. If you have read any of these books, please let me know what you thought about them. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!